The morning sky above Chicago burned orange with the reflection of fires that had raged for 3 days. Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison crouched behind the twisted remains of what had once been a city bus, his rifle trained on the alien patrol moving through the rubble-strewn street. The Kithara had landed without warning, their sleek silver ships descending from the clouds like metallic vultures. No negotiations, no demands for surrender, no attempts at communication. They simply began their harvest. Morrison's earpiece crackled with static before Lieutenant Commander Sarachan's voice cut through. Alpha Team, report status. Still breathing. Morrison whispered back, watching as 3 of the tall, insectoid aliens clicked and chittered to each other in their harsh language. Their bodies were covered in chitinous plates that gleamed like polished obsidian, and their 4 arms moved with unsettling coordination. Each carried weapons that hummed with an energy that made the air itself taste metallic. Hostiles are moving toward the elementary school ruins, Morrison continued. Same pattern as yesterday. They're collecting something from the debris. Chen's voice hardened. Negative on engagement. Intel suggests they're looking for survivors. Children specifically. Morrison's jaw clenched. In the past 72 hours, he had watched his world crumble. The aliens had swept through population centers with surgical precision, their weapons turning buildings to dust while leaving certain structures mysteriously intact. Schools, orphanages, pediatric hospitals. The pattern had become horrifically clear. The largest of the 3 aliens, its carapace marked with what appeared to be rank insignia, gestured with 2 of its arms toward a pile of concrete slabs. The other 2 began moving the debris with mechanical efficiency. Morrison could hear something underneath, a faint whimpering sound that made his blood run cold. Command, I have children down there, he whispered urgently into his comm, permission to engage. Negative, Morrison. Stand down. We need intelligence on their capabilities before. Morrison cut the channel and moved. Protocol meant nothing when kids were involved. He emerged from cover with fluid precision, his suppressed rifle spitting 3 controlled bursts. The aliens' personal shields flared with blue energy, absorbing the rounds, but the impact staggered them. The lead alien spun toward him with inhuman speed, its weapon charging with a rising whine. Morrison dove sideways as a beam of superheated plasma scorched the air where he had been standing. The alien's clicking grew more agitated, almost excited. Through his scope, Morrison could see what might have been an expression of amusement on its angular face. Human soldier, the alien spoke, its voice emerging from a translation device strapped to its thorax. The words came out flat and emotionless. You display the predictable aggression of your species. How entertaining. Morrison fired again, aiming for the gaps in the creature's armor. His bullets found their mark, drawing a viscous green fluid that might have been blood. The alien stumbled, but did not fall. Your projectile weapons are quaint, it continued, seemingly unbothered by its wounds. We have studied your military capabilities, your films, your literature, your training manuals. Such amusing fantasies of heroism and victory. The other 2 aliens had flanked Morrison's position. He rolled behind an overturned car as their weapons carved molten furrows in the asphalt. The acrid smell of melted metal filled the air. You fight for the young ones beneath the stone, the lead alien observed, its tone carrying what sounded like mockery. How predictable. How human. Morrison's training kicked in. He pulled a fragmentation grenade from his vest, counted 3 seconds, and hurled it over the car. The explosion sent the 2 flanking aliens sprawling, their shields sparking and failing. Morrison's rifle barked twice more, and they did not get back up. The lead alien's chittering grew louder, more animated. Impressive. You eliminated my subordinates. Perhaps you will provide adequate entertainment during our collection process. Collection? Morrison stepped out from cover, keeping his rifle trained on the creature. The young of your species possess certain qualities we require, the alien explained casually. Their neural pathways are still forming, malleable. Perfect for our purposes. Morrison felt ice flow through his veins. What purposes? The alien's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. Labor, primarily. Your young adapt quickly to new environments. They require minimal resources and can be modified to suit various functions. We have found that separating them from their progenitors at an early age reduces resistance to the conditioning process. The whimpering from beneath the rubble grew louder. Morrison could make out at least 3 distinct voices, all young, all terrified. Your species has provided similar services to ours before. The alien continued, beginning to pace in a predatory circle. Oh yes, human. This is not our first harvest from Earth. We have been collecting your young for many cycles. The governments have been cooperative. Morrison's world tilted. That's impossible. Impossible? Your missing children statistics are quite robust. Thousands disappear each year with no explanation. Where did you think they went? The alien's laughter was like metal scraping against stone. We simply collect our tribute and depart. Your leaders maintain the fiction of ignorance, and we allow your civilization to continue developing more product. Images flashed through Morrison's mind. Milk cartons with faces of missing kids. Amber alerts that led nowhere. Cold cases that were never solved. His finger tightened on the trigger. But this harvest is different, the alien continued. Your species has become too numerous, too advanced. The collection process has become inefficient. So we have decided to take a more direct approach. Morrison's calm crackled back to life. Alpha Team, this is command. Drones show massive alien formations converging on major population centers worldwide. They're hitting schools, daycare centers, anywhere children might be gathered. The alien heard the transmission, and its mandibles spread wider. Your military leadership understands the situation now. They have been given terms. Surrender all human offspring between the ages of 4 and 14, and we will allow adult populations to survive as breeding stock. Refuse, and we will simply take what we require and eliminate the rest. Morrison thought of his own daughter, Emma, safe in the underground bunkers with the other families. Safe, he hoped. You see, human soldier, resistance is not merely futile, it is irrelevant. We have mapped your emotional responses, studied your behavioral patterns. You will fight desperately to protect your young, yes. But you will also break when you watch them taken. Your spirit will crumble, and submission will follow. The alien gestured toward the trapped children with one of its arms. These small ones will serve as an example. You will watch as we extract them, process them, and prepare them for transport. And you will understand the futility of your defiance. Morrison's rifle never wavered. You know what I think? Enlighten me, primitive. Morrison's voice was steady, cold as Arctic wind. I think you've made one hell of a mistake. The alien chittered again. How so? You studied our movies, our books, our training manuals. But you missed the most important thing about humans. Morrison's finger moved to the trigger. We're not the heroes of those stories because we win easily. We're the heroes because we keep fighting even when we know we're going to lose. The plasma weapon in the alien's upper arms began to charge. Such bravado. Let's see how long your courage lasts when Morrison's shot took the creature's center mass, right between its middle arms. The alien staggered backward, green ichor spraying from the wound. And another thing you missed, Morrison said, advancing steadily, firing again and again as the alien shields flickered and died. We don't fight fair. The alien collapsed, its weapon clattering across the broken pavement. Morrison kicked it away and knelt beside the dying creature. Human, it wheezed, its translator sparking. You cannot stop the harvest. Too many of us. Too few of you. Morrison leaned closer. Maybe, but here's what's going to happen. I'm going to get those kids out from under that rubble. I'm going to get them somewhere safe. And then I'm going to find more of your friends. And then Morrison's smile was like a blade. Then I'm going to show you what happens when you threaten our children. You want to see human movies? Here's your blockbuster. He stood and moved toward the pile of debris where the whimpering continued. Behind him, the alien's chittering faded to silence. Morrison keyed his calm as he began moving concrete slabs. Command, this is Alpha Team Leader. I need immediate dust-off for civilian casualties. And patch me through to whoever's coordinating the global response. Morrison, you're supposed to be maintaining radio silence. Plans change. These things have been taking our kids for years. This isn't an invasion, it's a harvest. And they just made it personal. Chen's voice came back tense. What are you saying? Morrison heaved another slab aside, revealing a small hand. A girl, maybe 6 years old, looked up at him with huge, frightened eyes. I'm saying it's time to remind these things why every monster in human mythology ends up dead. Morrison reached down to help the child. Give me Admiral Martinez. Tell him we're not defending anymore. Sir, Morrison lifted the little girl out of the rubble, checking her for injuries as 2 more children emerged from the debris. all alive, all terrified but breathing. We're going hunting. The alien fleet stretched across the sky like a metallic storm cloud, their ships hovering over every major city on Earth. But in the streets below, in the ruins and the shelters, something was stirring. Something the Kithra had not accounted for in their careful studies of human behavior. They had studied human military doctrine, human weapons, human tactics. They had analyzed human movies and books and training manuals. But they had made one critical error in their research. They had forgotten that every human monster story ends the same way. The monster always underestimates what parents will do to protect their children. Morrison helped the 3 rescued children toward the evacuation point, his rifle ready, his comm alive with reports from around the globe. The aliens thought they understood human nature. They thought they had mapped every response, predicted every reaction. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the distance, more alien ships were landing. More collection teams were deploying. The harvest was accelerating, but so was the resistance. And somewhere in the Pentagon's underground command center, Admiral Martinez was listening to Morrison's report and reaching for a red phone that hadn't been used since the Cold War ended. The aliens wanted to collect human children. Humanity was about to show them the cost of that mistake. The war for Earth's future was about to begin in earnest, and it would be fought not by soldiers following orders, but by parents defending their young. The Kithara had studied human nature, but they had misunderstood its most fundamental truth. Humans didn't fight hardest when they were cornered. They fought hardest when someone threatened their kids. And that fight was just beginning. Admiral Martinez stared at the global situation map projected across the wall of NORAD's Crisis Command Center. Red dots marked alien ship positions over every major population center on 6 continents. Yellow triangles showed confirmed collection sites. The numbers were staggering. Over 2 million children already taken in the first wave. Sir, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes approached with a tablet showing casualty reports. Latest figures from Europe. London, Paris, Berlin, Rome. They hit every major city simultaneously. Military resistance has been minimal. Martinez didn't look away from the display. Define minimal. Conventional weapons are largely ineffective against their personal shields and ship armor. Tank rounds bounce off. Artillery gets absorbed by some kind of energy barrier. Air strikes. Hayes paused. The RAF lost an entire squadron over London, shot down by energy weapons we can't even classify. The Admiral's jaw worked silently. At 73, he had served in 3 wars and commanded fleets worth hundreds of billions of dollars. He had planned for alien invasion scenarios since the 1980s. None of those plans had accounted for this. What about nuclear options? Colonel Sarah Kim, the weapons specialist, shook her head grimly. We tried. The French launched a tactical nuke at the formation over Marseille. The alien ships absorbed the entire blast. Energy signature just disappeared into their hulls like they were batteries being charged. Martinez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground facility's climate control. They're not just immune to our weapons. They're feeding on them. The main screen shifted to show footage from around the globe. Alien collection teams moved through cities with methodical precision. Their technology was beyond anything humanity could field. Plasma weapons that could level buildings or stun individual targets. Force fields that rendered armor useless. Transport ships that could appear and disappear at will. But it was the collection process itself that made Martinez's blood run cold. The aliens moved through schools, playgrounds, residential areas with scanning devices. When they located children in the target age range, they simply took them. Parents who resisted were disintegrated. Those who complied were left alive, but broken. Sir, Communications Officer Torres looked up from her station. We're receiving a priority transmission from Master Chief Morrison. He's requesting immediate support for guerrilla operations. Martinez recognized the name. Morrison had led some of the Navy's most classified operations over his 20-year career. If anyone could adapt to asymmetric warfare against a superior enemy, it would be him. Put him through. Morrison's voice filled the command center, clear despite the obvious combat noise in the background. Admiral, I've been tracking alien ground operations for 6 hours. I have intelligence that changes everything. Go ahead, Master Chief. These aren't soldiers, sir. They're harvesters. Their entire force structure is built around collection and processing, not combat operations. They have overwhelming technological superiority, but their tactical thinking is limited to suppression and containment. Martinez leaned forward. Explain. They move in predictable patterns. Same formation every time. 3 ship collection groups with identical escort patterns. They scan an area, identify targets, extract them, and move on. No adaptation to resistance. No tactical flexibility. It's like they're following a program. On the screen, Martinez could see reports confirming Morrison's observations. In every city, the alien tactics were nearly identical. Efficient, overwhelming, but mechanically predictable. More importantly, Morrison continued. They're vulnerable during collection operations. Their shields have to be lowered to use their scanning equipment and transport beams. I've taken out 3 collection teams using standard infantry weapons, but only by hitting them during active scans. Colonel Hayes stepped closer to the communication station. Morrison, what's your assessment of their ground force numbers? Small, maybe a few thousand total across all major cities. They're relying entirely on technological superiority and shock tactics. But, sir, Morrison's voice hardened. I've confirmed the intelligence about long-term collection operations. This isn't their first harvest. They've been taking our kids for decades. The command center fell silent. Martinez had suspected as much from the aliens' casual efficiency, their obvious familiarity with human population centers. But hearing it confirmed was different. How do you know? Captured one of their data storage devices. Admiral, they have records going back 70 years. Detailed files on human psychological profiles, military capabilities, governmental structures. They know exactly how we think, how we fight, how we organize. They've been studying us like lab rats. Martinez felt pieces clicking together in his mind. The missing children statistics, the cold cases, all of it. They've been taking what they wanted and letting us explain it away. But something changed. Their demands suddenly went from hundreds per year to millions in a single operation. What changed? Morrison was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried a dangerous edge. I think they got impatient. Or maybe they decided we learned too much. Either way, they've made a mistake. How so? All those years of secret collections, they never had to deal with organized resistance. They never had to fight people who knew what they were up against. They planned for confusion and panic, not for coordinated retaliation. Martinez studied the global display again. What Morrison was saying made sense. The alien operations were efficient against unprepared populations, but they showed no adaptation to military resistance. They were following a script written for a different kind of war. What do you need, Master Chief? Permission to coordinate resistance operations. These things can be hurt, but it requires specific tactics and timing. And, Admiral, Morrison paused. I need you to authorize something that's going to sound insane. I'm listening. We need to let them take more children. The command center erupted in protests. Colonel Hayes stepped forward. Morrison, that's unacceptable. We can't sacrifice, hear me out. Morrison cut him off. Every collection operation follows the same pattern. They scan, they load targets onto transport ships, then they transfer them to the main vessel for processing. But there's a window, maybe 20 minutes, between initial collection and final transport where those kids are held in staging areas. Martinez felt his stomach drop as he realized what Morrison was suggesting. You want to stage rescue operations during transport. Not rescue, sir. Infiltration. If we can get tracking devices on those ships, maybe even get people aboard, we can find out where they're taking our kids. More importantly, we can find out how many of our people they already have. The implications were staggering. If the aliens had been conducting collection operations for decades, there could be hundreds of thousands of humans already in their custody. Children taken years ago, now adults. Adults who might have intelligence about alien capabilities, weaknesses, locations. It's a long shot, Morrison continued, but it's the only way we get actionable intelligence on their operations beyond Earth. And, Admiral, if we're going to stop this, we need to hit them where they live. Martinez stared at the display, showing alien positions across the globe. Morrison was right. Purely defensive operations wouldn't work. Humanity couldn't win a defensive war against this technology. But an offensive operation required intelligence they didn't have. The risk to the infiltration team would be enormous. Yes, sir. But the risk of doing nothing is worse. Martinez thought of his own grandchildren, currently in deep shelter beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Emma and Tyler, ages 7 and 9. The perfect target demographic for alien collection. How many volunteers would you need? Small teams. maybe 6 operators per insertion. But, Admiral, these would be one-way missions. Once they're on those ships, there's no guarantee of extraction. The command center was quiet except for the hum of computers and the distant rumble of ventilation systems. Martinez looked around at his staff, career military professionals who had dedicated their lives to protecting American interests. Now, they were planning suicide missions to save the children of the world. Colonel Hayes, I want you to coordinate with Morrison on mission parameters. Full autonomy for tactical decisions. Unlimited access to special operations personnel. Sir, with respect, this plan is insane. Yes, I heard. Martinez turned back to the communication station. Morrison, you have authorization for volunteer recruitment. Make it clear what they're signing up for. Already done, sir. I've got more volunteers than I can use. Turns out a lot of people are willing to die if it means getting their kids back. Of course they were. Martinez had children of his own, grandchildren who represented the future of everything he had spent his life protecting. Given the same choice, he would probably volunteer himself. What's your timeline? Next collection wave hits the West Coast in 4 hours. Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Portland. I can have teams ready for insertion by then, for hours to plan and execute the most desperate operation in human history. Martinez had overseen invasions with months of preparation. This was beyond desperate. It was impossible. But impossible was what they had left. Do it, Martinez said quietly. And Morrison? Yes, sir. Make them pay. The transmission ended, and Martinez found himself staring at a map that showed humanity's children being stolen by creatures from across the stars. The aliens had technology that made human weapons obsolete. They had been planning this operation for decades. They had every advantage except one. They had never fought angry parents before, and they were about to learn that some wars can't be won with superior technology alone. Martinez picked up the red phone that connected him directly to the president. It was time to authorize the impossible. It was time to send human warriors to the stars, even if they never came back. Especially if they never came back. Master Chief Morrison crouched in the ruins of what had been Lincoln Elementary School, watching the alien collection ship descend through the smoke-filled sky above Los Angeles. The vessel was massive, easily the size of a city block, its hull gleaming with the same obsidian perfection as the alien's personal armor. Energy patterns danced across its surface like living lightning. Behind him, 5 other operators checked their equipment one final time. Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, Delta Force, whose 8-year-old son had been taken from a Phoenix school playground. Lieutenant Commander David Park, SEAL Team 6, volunteered despite having no children of his own. Staff Sergeant Joseph Williams, Marine Force Recon, whose daughter had been among the first taken in Denver. Senior Chief Petty Officer Anna Kozlov, Navy EOD Specialist, her twin boys missing from a Seattle daycare. Sergeant Major Robert Shun, Special Forces, whose wife was 7 months pregnant with their first child. They called themselves the Lost Angels Team. Morrison thought the name was appropriate. Radio check. Morrison whispered into his throat, Mike Santos, 5x5. Park clear. Williams, good copy. Kozlov, solid. Shun ready. Morrison activated the encrypted channel connecting them to NORAD command. Control, this is Lost Angels. Target vessel is in position. Beginning final approach. Admiral Martinez's voice crackled through their earpieces. Lost Angels, be advised, we're tracking 17 similar collection operations worldwide. You're a go for infiltration. Godspeed. The alien ship settled over the school with impossible grace, its bulk casting the entire area into shadow. Collection teams emerged from portal-like openings in the hull, their chitinous forms moving with mechanical precision toward the temporary shelters where local families had been hiding. Morrison had spent the past 3 days studying alien collection procedures. The pattern never varied. Ground teams would scan for targets, stun any adults who resisted, and load children into energy cages that floated behind them like nightmare shopping carts. The cages were then transported to the staging area inside the ship's lower hull, where they remained for approximately 20 minutes before being transferred to the main processing decks. 20 minutes. That was their window. Movement, Santos whispered. Collection Team Alpha is scanning the main shelter. Through his scope, Morrison watched 3 aliens approach the reinforced basement where 43 families were hiding. The lead alien carried a device that pulsed with blue light as it swept across the building's facade. When the pulse reached maximum intensity, The alien chittered something to its companions. Children were down there. Morrison had helped put them there. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, using kids as bait, knowing what would happen to them if the mission failed. But every military operation involved calculated risks, and this calculation was simple. If they could get intelligence on alien operations beyond Earth, they might save millions. If they failed, those same millions would be taken anyway. Contact, Park reported. They're cutting through the shelter wall. The aliens' tools made short work of the reinforced concrete. Within minutes, they had opened a hole large enough for their collection equipment. The screaming started immediately. Parents begging, children crying, the sound of energy weapons being discharged. Morrison forced himself to watch through the scope as the aliens began loading children into the floating cages. 43 kids between the ages of 5 and 13, all volunteers in their own way. Their parents had been told the truth about the mission, given the choice to evacuate their children or participate in the desperate gamble. Every single family had chosen to stay. Jesus, Williams muttered. Look at those things. They're enjoying this. Morrison could see it too. The aliens' mandibles were spread in what he had learned to recognize as expressions of amusement. They chittered to each other as they worked, occasionally pausing to observe a particularly frightened child. One of them seemed to be recording the collection process on some kind of device. They're documenting it, Morrison realized, for training purposes or entertainment. Sick bastards. The collection process took 18 minutes. Morrison watched the floating cages being guided up into the ship's lower hull, disappearing into what looked like a cargo bay. The ground teams followed, and the portal sealed behind them. That's our cue, Morrison said. Lost Angels execute insertion. They moved like shadows across the debris field, using the destruction as cover. The alien ship hovered 30 feet off the ground, but its lower hull showed several service ports that remained open during collection operations. Morrison's team had identified them during their reconnaissance. Maintenance access points that the aliens apparently considered too small for humans to use. The aliens had underestimated human flexibility. Santos reached the ship first, pulling herself up a twisted fire escape to reach the lowest service port. The opening was barely 18 inches square, designed for alien maintenance drones. She slipped through it like smoke, her body armor and equipment compressed to minimum profile. One by one, the team infiltrated the ship through the service ports. Morrison went last, pulling himself through the cramped opening into what appeared to be a maintenance corridor. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, and the air tasted metallic and sharp. Internal comms only, Morrison whispered, switching to the team's short-range, encrypted system. No contact with control until we reach primary objectives. They had memorized the ship's layout based on Morrison's observations of similar vessels. The staging area would be 3 decks up, accessible through maintenance shafts that ran parallel to the main corridors. From there, they would split into 2 teams, one to plant tracking devices and attempt contact with the captured children, another to penetrate deeper into the ship and gather intelligence on alien operations. The maintenance shafts were a nightmare of alien architecture. Surfaces that looked solid proved to be flexible membranes. Corridors branched and merged according to no pattern Morrison could understand. The ship itself seemed alive, responding to their presence with subtle changes in lighting and temperature. Movement sensors, Park reported quietly. These things know we're here. Morrison had expected that. The aliens' technology was too advanced for simple stealth to work. But their research suggested that alien security protocols were designed for their own species, creatures twice the size of humans with completely different movement patterns. The ship might detect intruders without immediately identifying them as threats. They reached the staging area after 20 minutes of crawling through spaces that sometimes narrowed to less than a foot in diameter. Morrison peered through a maintenance grate into a vast chamber filled with floating energy cages. Hundreds of them, containing children from collection operations around the globe. The sight hit him like a physical blow. Kids from every continent, every culture, all locked in transparent prisons that hummed with alien energy. Some were crying. Others sat in stunned silence. A few had pressed themselves against the walls of their cages, trying to reach children in nearby prisons. Control, this is Lost Angels, Morrison whispered into his comm, hoping the transmission would penetrate the ship's hull. We have visual confirmation of the staging area. Estimated 1,200 children from global collection operations. No response. The ship's hull was blocking their communications with Earth. Santos, Williams plant the tracking devices and attempt contact with the friendlies. Rest of us continue to primary intelligence target. Santos and Williams dropped through the maintenance shaft into the staging area. Morrison watched them move between the cages, placing thumbnail-sized tracking devices on the energy containment systems while trying to calm the terrified children inside. Morrison, Park, Kozlov, and Chun continued deeper into the ship. Their objective was the ship's data core, assuming aliens used anything analogous to human computer systems. The intelligence they gathered there could reveal alien weaknesses, fleet positions, maybe even the location of previously captured humans. The corridors grew stranger as they penetrated the ship's upper levels. Walls curved at impossible angles. Gravity seemed to shift direction randomly. Morrison began to suspect they weren't just dealing with advanced technology. The aliens might be operating under completely different physics. "Chief," Kozlov whispered, "we're being followed." Morrison glanced back to see a maintenance drone the size of a basketball hovering in the corridor behind them. Its surface was covered with sensors and manipulator arms, and it was definitely tracking their movement. "Keep moving. If it was hostile, we'd already be dead." They reached what Morrison hoped was the data core after an hour of navigation through the ship's maze-like interior. The chamber was enormous, filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with information patterns. Holographic displays showed what appeared to be star maps, fleet positions, and operation timelines. Park began recording everything with a hardened digital camera while Kozlov worked to interface her tablet with the alien systems. Chun and Morrison stood guard at the chamber's entrance. "Chief," Chun said quietly, "we've got company." 3 aliens emerged from a side corridor, moving with the casual confidence of creatures in their own territory. They carried no weapons, wore no armor, just the standard chitinous carapace Morrison had seen on all their species. They seemed more curious than hostile. "Human infiltrators," the lead alien said through its translation device. "How unexpected." Morrison kept his rifle trained on the creature. "Unexpected. We detected your entry immediately, of course. Our ship's security systems are quite sophisticated. But we were curious to see how far you would penetrate before confronting you." The alien's mandibles spread in that familiar expression of amusement. "Tell me, human soldier, what did you hope to accomplish with this primitive infiltration attempt?" Morrison said nothing. Behind him, he could hear Kozlov working frantically to download data from the alien systems. "Ah, I see. Intelligence gathering. How charmingly naive." The alien gestured toward the holographic displays. "You wish to understand our operations, perhaps discover our weaknesses? Let me save you the effort." The displays shifted to show detailed readouts of human military capabilities. Tank armor specifications, aircraft performance parameters, nuclear weapon yields. Everything was there analyzed and categorized with clinical precision. "We have been studying your species for many cycles, human. We know your weapons, your tactics, your limitations. There are no weaknesses for you to exploit because your technology is simply too primitive to threaten us." Morrison felt his finger tighten on the trigger. "Then, why are you talking to us instead of killing us?" The alien chittered, laughter. "Because you amuse us. This desperate infiltration, this pathetic attempt at resistance. It is exactly what our behavioral models predicted. You are performing according to script." The other 2 aliens moved to flank Morrison's position. Still no weapons, but their body language suggested they could disable him without technological assistance. "Your species' response to the collection operations has been entertaining," the lead alien continued. "The emotional displays, the futile military resistance, the bargaining attempts by your leaders. We have recorded everything for educational purposes." Morrison's comm crackled with static. Santos's voice came through, distorted by interference. "Chief, we have a problem. The transmission cut off. Your team in the staging area has encountered a small complication," the alien explained. "Nothing terminal, but they will no longer be available to assist you." Morrison felt cold rage building in his chest. "What did you do to them?" "Sedated them for processing. They will join the other specimens from your planet. We are always interested in acquiring adult humans for comparison studies." Park stopped recording and turned toward the aliens. "Comparison studies? Oh yes, we have been harvesting your species for much longer than you realize. The young adapt better to our requirements, but adults provide useful data about human psychological resilience under stress. Morrison's world went dark around the edges. How long? The first systematic collections began approximately 3 centuries ago. Small numbers, carefully managed to avoid detection. Humans from remote areas, travelers who would not be missed. Your species' tendency to assume missing persons had simply died in accidents made concealment quite simple. 300 years. Morrison tried to process the implications. The aliens had been taking humans since before the American Revolution. Where are they? Hart demanded. What happened to them? The aliens' mandibles spread wider. They serve us now. The ones who survive the adaptation process become quite useful. Manual labor, dangerous mining operations, biological experiments. Your species' versatility is remarkable. Morrison's rifle came up automatically, but the alien continued speaking as if the weapon didn't exist. Of course, the survival rate during adaptation is quite low. Perhaps 20%, but that is acceptable. Quality over quantity. Morrison fired. The bullet struck the alien center mass, driving it backward against the crystalline data structure. Green ichor sprayed across the holographic displays. Fascinating. The creature wheezed, examining the wound. You continue to resist, even when faced with absolute futility. Such an interesting psychological response. The other two aliens moved with inhuman speed. Morrison spun toward them, but something struck him from behind, a neural disruptor that sent electric fire through his nervous system. He collapsed, his rifle clattering across the chamber floor. Chief, Park drew his sidearm, but one of the aliens gestured casually and the weapon simply crumbled to dust in his hands. Matter dissolution. The wounded alien explained conversationally. Standard non-lethal restraint technology. We prefer to take specimens alive when possible. Morrison tried to move, but his body wouldn't respond. Kozlov and Chun were down as well, their bodies twitching from neural overload. Only Park remained standing, but he was unarmed and outnumbered. Now then, the alien said, applying some kind of medical device to its wound, let us discuss your future service to our civilization. Morrison forced words through his paralyzed throat. Go to hell. Hell. The alien's translation device processed the concept. Ah yes, your species' mythological punishment realm. How appropriate. You see, human, you will indeed be going somewhere quite unpleasant. Our primary processing facility is located in what you would call a hell world. Extreme temperatures, toxic atmosphere, gravity 3 times your planet's normal level. The alien moved closer, its compound eyes reflecting Morrison's paralyzed form. But do not despair. The humans we already have there have adapted quite well. Your species is remarkably resilient. Given proper motivation, you can survive conditions that would kill most sentient life. Morrison managed to work saliva into his mouth. What motivation? Simple. We keep a breeding population of human children at each facility. Workers who perform adequately are allowed brief visitation periods. Those who resist or fail to meet quotas. The alien shrugged, a gesture that looked wrong on its insectoid frame. Well, children require considerable food and medical care. Resources we prefer not to waste. The neural disruptor's effects were beginning to wear off. Morrison could feel sensation returning to his extremities. But the alien showed no concern about his recovery. You see, resistance truly is futile. Not because we are invincible, but because we have structured our operations to make victory meaningless. Even if your military managed to destroy every ship in our current fleet, it would merely cost us a small investment. The humans we have already collected represent decades of harvest. Their children will provide the next generation of workers. Morrison tested his fingers. Limited mobility returning. And if somehow, impossibly, you manage to locate and assault our processing facilities, your own people would die in the attack. Humans are integral to our operations now. You cannot strike at us without striking at yourselves. The alien turned toward the holographic displays, which now showed real-time footage from the ship's staging area. Morrison could see Santos and Williams unconscious in energy restraints, being loaded into the same type of cages that held the children. Your infiltration team will be processed along with the juvenile specimens. They will have perhaps 6 months to adapt to conditions at Processing Facility Gamma 7 before their usefulness is evaluated. I estimate a 35% survival probability. Morrison worked his legs, testing nerve response. Almost ready. But their sacrifice will serve a purpose, the alien continued. You see, we're going to broadcast recordings of their adaptation process to your planet's communication networks. Your species will witness exactly what happens to those who resist collection operations. The alien turned back toward Morrison. Your governments will then be offered a choice. Surrender the remaining target demographic willingly, and we will treat them more humanely during processing. Continue resistance, and we will demonstrate more persuasive motivation techniques. Morrison's hand found his combat knife. Of course, the alien said. We both know which option your leaders will choose. Humans always prioritize immediate suffering over long-term consequences. It is one of your species' more predictable traits. Morrison surged to his feet, the knife already moving toward the alien's thorax. But the creature simply gestured, and Morrison found himself frozen in mid-attack, the blade inches from his target. Impressive recovery time, the alien observed. Your neural system adapted to the disruptor faster than projected. We will note that for future reference. Morrison struggled against the paralysis field holding him motionless. You made one mistake. Indeed? Please enlighten me. Morrison's lips pulled back in a feral smile. You forgot about the bomb. The alien's mandibles twitched, possibly confusion. What bomb? Morrison forced the words out through the paralysis field's interference. Standard operating procedure for infiltration missions. Contingency plan in case of capture. The alien moved closer, its compound eyes reflecting Morrison's face like a kaleidoscope. Explain. Nuclear device timer activated when we entered the ship. Dead man switch. Morrison was lying. They carried no such device. But the alien didn't know that, and Morrison could see uncertainty in its posture. Scan him. The alien commanded its companions. One of them produced a device that hummed as it passed over Morrison's body. No explosive device detected, it reported. Morrison's smile widened. Of course not. Device is outside ship. The truth was there in his expression, in his tone of absolute confidence. Morrison watched the alien process the implications. Elaborate. Backup team. Shoulder-fired nuclear warhead. Targeting this ship. Dead man switch linked to my vital signs. Another lie. But a convincing one because it was exactly what Morrison would have done if he'd had the resources. If I die, or if my heart rate stays elevated too long, automatic launch sequence activates. The alien chittered frantically to its companions. Morrison couldn't understand their language, but their body language was clear. They were arguing about the possibility. Your species does not possess portable nuclear weapons of sufficient yield to threaten our ships, the alien said finally. Morrison's laugh was like breaking glass. You studied our movies. Ever see the one about David and Goliath? The alien stepped back. You are bluffing. Maybe, but do you want to find out? For the first time since Morrison had encountered their species, he saw an alien display something that looked like uncertainty. The creature's mandibles were twitching erratically, and its compound eyes kept shifting between Morrison and its scanning equipment. Contact the fleet, it commanded one of its subordinates. Verify human military positions around this collection zone. Morrison watched them work, maintaining his expression of absolute confidence while his mind raced. He had maybe minutes before their scans revealed the truth about his non-existent backup team. But minutes might be enough. The tracking devices Santos had planted were transmitting. Earth would know the aliens' fleet positions now. And Morrison's team had gathered intelligence about alien operations that stretched back centuries. Humanity would still lose this war. But they would lose it with their eyes open, knowing exactly what they were fighting and what would happen if they failed. That was something at least. It was a start. Admiral Martinez stared at the tactical display, showing the Pacific Ocean where the alien collection ship had vanished beneath the waves 18 hours ago. The tracking devices planted by Morrison's team continued to transmit from a depth of 12,000 feet, marking what appeared to be a massive underwater facility off the coast of California. Signal strength is holding steady, Lieutenant Torres reported. Whatever's down there, it's big enough to house multiple capital ships. Martinez nodded grimly. The intelligence gathered during the Lost Angels mission had changed everything. The aliens weren't just invading Earth. They were operating from permanent installations that had been hidden beneath human oceans for centuries. facilities that housed not just current captives, but generations of humans who had been harvested and enslaved. Sir, Colonel Hayes approached with a classified folder. Latest analysis from the NSA crypto team. They've broken some of the alien data Morrison's team extracted. Martinez opened the folder and felt his blood turn to ice. Charts showing human population centers across the globe, marked with collection quotas spanning decades. Mining operations on 17 different worlds, all staffed with human slave labor. Breeding programs designed to maintain sustainable population levels for continued harvesting. And at the bottom of the file, a single piece of information that made Martinez's hand shake. Estimated current human population in alien custody, 2.3 million individuals. 2.3 million people. Men, women, children taken over the centuries and forced into lives of unimaginable horror. People have been written off as missing persons while they suffered in alien hell worlds light years from Earth. Jesus Christ, Martinez vispirit. It gets worse, sir, Hayes said quietly. According to the data, the current collection operation isn't random. They're specifically targeting children with certain genetic markers. Enhanced intelligence, creativity, adaptability. They're selectively breeding humanity like livestock. Martinez closed the folder and walked to the main display. The tracking signals from the underwater facility pulsed steadily, taunting him with their proximity. Somewhere 12,000 feet below the ocean surface, Morrison and his team were being processed along with hundreds of children. And there wasn't a damn thing he could do about it. Admiral, Torres looked up from her station. Incoming transmission from the president. The main screen shifted to show President Williams in the White House Situation Room. The man looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. Admiral, what's our status on the Lost Angels intelligence? Confirmed, Mr. President. The aliens have been operating permanent facilities on Earth for centuries. We're tracking at least 3 underwater installations off our coasts, plus orbital stations that we previously mistook for asteroids. The president's face went gray. How many people are we talking about? Martinez hesitated. Over 2 million in current custody, sir. Potentially more at off-world facilities. The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Martinez could see the president struggling with the implications. Options, the president asked finally. Limited. Our nuclear weapons are useless. They actually seem to feed on energy weapons. Conventional forces can't operate at oceanic depths where their main facilities are located. And sir, Martinez paused. Any assault on their installations would result in massive casualties among the human captives. So we do nothing. Martinez looked around the command center at his staff, career professionals who had dedicated their lives to protecting American citizens. People who were now being asked to write off millions of their own species as acceptable losses. There is one option, Martinez said slowly. But it's not military. Explain. Martinez had been thinking about this since the alien data files were decoded. The enemy had technological superiority that made direct confrontation impossible. But they had one critical weakness. They didn't understand human psychology as well as they thought they did. The aliens have been studying us for centuries, but they've been studying us as victims. They understand human panic, human despair, human submission, but they don't understand human rage. Admiral, I need specifics. They're operating under the assumption that we'll prioritize immediate survival over long-term resistance. That will surrender to save the people they've already taken. But that assumption is based on observing isolated individuals, not coordinated populations. Martinez activated a secondary display showing global communication networks. Mr. President, we need to tell the world everything. Not just about the current invasion, but about the centuries of harvesting. Every missing person, every cold case, every family that spent years wondering what happened to their loved ones. The president leaned forward. That would cause massive panic. Yes, sir, but it would also cause massive anger. The aliens are counting on fear to ensure compliance. But humans don't just get afraid when someone threatens their children. They get furious. Martinez thought about Morrison's last transmission from inside the alien ship. The man's voice when he described seeing hundreds of children in energy cages. The cold rage that had replaced tactical professionalism. The aliens have made one critical error in their psychological modeling. They assume that discovering the scope of their operations will break human resistance. Instead, it's going to unite humanity in a way nothing else could. Colonel Hayes stepped closer to the display. Sir, with respect, Even united humanity doesn't have the technology to fight this enemy. No, we don't. But we have something they don't understand. Martinez turned to face the president. We have people who are willing to die before they'll let their children be taken. And when those people have nothing left to lose, they become unpredictable. The president was quiet for a long moment. You're talking about terrorism. Global, coordinated terrorism. I'm talking about resistance. The aliens control our skies and our oceans, but they're operating collection facilities on the surface. Processing centers, staging areas, communication relays. All vulnerable to asymmetric warfare. Martinez highlighted locations on the global map where alien ground operations were most concentrated. They're efficient, but they're not infinite. Every facility they lose costs them resources and forces them to adapt their operations. And adaptation requires time they might not have. What do you mean? According to the captured data, this harvest operation is on a strict timeline. They need to collect specific population numbers before their transport ships return to their home system. If we can disrupt their schedule, force them to expend resources on security instead of collection. Martinez trailed off as he realized the full implications of what he was suggesting. Admiral, Mr. President, we can't win this war. Their technology is too advanced, their numbers too large. But we might be able to make the victory so expensive that they decide to abandon Earth entirely. It was a desperate gamble. Humanity would essentially be committing suicide as a species, choosing destruction over enslavement. But given the alternative, centuries of harvesting operations that would reduce humanity to a breeding population for alien slavers, it might be the only moral choice. The cost would be enormous, the president said quietly. Yes, sir, but the cost of surrender would be worse. The communication channel was silent as the president contemplated authorizing what would essentially be the end of civilization. Martinez understood the weight of the decision. He was asking the leader of the free world to choose between certain destruction and certain enslavement. How long do we have? Based on the alien operational timeline, maybe 6 weeks before their transport ships complete the harvest and depart. After that, any humans remaining on Earth become part of the standing breeding population. The president closed his eyes. When he opened them again, Martinez saw something he had never seen in a political leader's expression before. Absolute moral clarity. Admiral, you have authorization for global information release. Full disclosure about alien operations, past and present. I'll coordinate with other world leaders. Yes, sir. And Admiral, authorization for any and all resistance operations that might disrupt alien collection schedules. No restrictions, no rules of engagement. Whatever it takes. Martinez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground facility's temperature. The president was essentially authorizing global war without conventional military objectives. War where victory was measured not in territory taken, but in how much damage humanity could inflict before it was destroyed. Mr. President, are you sure about this? The president looked directly into the camera. Admiral, I have 3 grandchildren. If aliens are going to turn them into slaves, they're going to have to kill me first. And I suspect most of the people on this planet feel the same way. The transmission ended, leaving Martinez staring at a display that showed alien collection operations proceeding methodically across 6 continents. In 6 hours, the world would know the truth about centuries of harvesting. In 12 hours, every human being on the planet would understand exactly what they were fighting for. The aliens thought they understood human psychology. They thought fear would ensure compliance, that the prospect of losing loved ones would prevent organized resistance. They were about to discover how wrong they were. Martinez activated the global communication array that would broadcast simultaneously to every connected device on Earth. News networks, emergency alert systems, social media platforms, military communications nets. Everything. In 6 hours, 7 billion people would learn that their children were being harvested by creatures that had been hunting humanity for centuries. They would learn that resistance meant certain death, and surrender meant something worse than death. And then they would choose. Martinez began typing the message that would either save humanity or destroy it. To the people of Earth, this is Admiral Martinez, speaking for the unified military command of all free nations. What I am about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about the world, about history, and about the future of human civilization. He paused, thinking about Morrison and his team somewhere beneath the Pacific Ocean, probably being processed for transport to alien hell worlds. Thinking about his own grandchildren in the bunkers beneath Cheyenne Mountain. Thinking about every missing child whose face had appeared on a milk carton over the past century. For 300 years, our children have been taken from us. What we thought were random disappearances, isolated tragedies, unexplained mysteries. All of it was part of a systematic harvest operation conducted by an alien species that views humanity as livestock. Martinez continued typing, laying out everything they knew about alien operations, human casualties, and the scope of the threat. The message would terrify people. It would cause panic, chaos, probably the collapse of several governments. But it would also make them angry. And angry humans, as the aliens were about to discover, were the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The message ended with a simple statement. We cannot win this war, but we can choose how we lose it. We can die as slaves, or we can die as free people fighting for our children's future. I know what choice I'm making. I know what choice humanity will make. Martinez hit the transmission key and watched as the message propagated across every communication network on the planet. In the tracking display, the signals from Morrison's team continued their steady pulse from the ocean floor. Soon, those signals would guide the first human assault on an alien installation. It would probably fail. The assault team would probably die, but their failure would teach the next team something about alien defenses. And the next team would teach something to the team after that. Humanity would lose this war, but they would lose it one bloody lesson at a time. And maybe, just maybe, they would make the aliens pay such a high price for victory that it would feel more like defeat. The war for humanity's soul was about to begin, and it would be fought not by soldiers following orders, but by parents defending their children, even if those children were already lost. Morrison opened his eyes to the sound of human voices speaking in languages he didn't recognize. The air tasted wrong, too thin, too cold, with a metallic tang that made his throat burn. Above him, 3 suns blazed in an alien sky the color of dried blood. He was lying on rough stone in what appeared to be a massive quarry. Humans of all ages worked the mining equipment with mechanical precision, their movements coordinated by aliens wielding neural control devices. In the distance, massive processing plants belched toxic smoke into the crimson atmosphere. "You're awake," a voice said beside him. Morrison turned to see a woman in her 50s crouched nearby. Her skin was weathered and scarred, her clothes patched together from salvaged materials. But her eyes were alert and intelligent. "Where are we?" Morrison's voice came out as a croak. "Processing facility Gamma 7. About 47 light years from Earth, in what you probably call the Kepler system. I am Dr. Sarah Kim, formerly of Johns Hopkins Medical Center. Taken from a parking garage in Baltimore in 1987. Morrison sat up slowly, his body aching from neural disruptor aftereffects. Around him, dozens of other humans were recovering from what appeared to be transport sedation. He recognized Santos and Williams among them, along with several of the children from the collection operations. The kids, being processed separately. Children adapt faster to the neural conditioning, so they go through accelerated integration. Adults get a longer adjustment period. Kim's expression was grim. About 70% of adults don't survive the process. Morrison looked around the quarry, trying to process the scale of the operation. Thousands of humans working under alien supervision, extracting some kind of crystalline material from the planet's crust. In the distance, he could see other quarries, other processing facilities, stretching to the horizon. How many people on this planet? Maybe 50,000 humans across all facilities. But there are 17 worlds like this one, according to the intel we've gathered over the years. Morrison felt the numbers hit him like a physical blow. Nearly 1 million human beings scattered across alien worlds, forced into lives of unimaginable hardship. Generations of people who had been stolen from Earth and erased from history. The children from our mission, are they safe? Kim pointed toward a cluster of prefabricated structures near the main processing plant. The young ones are in adaptation dormitories. They'll spend 6 months learning alien languages and work protocols. After that, she shrugged. They become part of the operation. Most of them stop remembering Earth after a year or two. Morrison forced himself to stand, testing his balance against the planet's gravity. It felt wrong, too heavy, making every movement an effort. "Tell me about the resistance." Kim smiled for the first time since they'd started talking. What makes you think there is one? Because you're talking to me instead of working. Because you know details about facility operations that regular workers wouldn't have access to. And because you're asking questions instead of following orders. Kim nodded approvingly. Former military? Navy SEAL. Master Chief Morrison. We were part of an infiltration team trying to gather intelligence on alien operations. Mission accomplished, Kim said dryly. Though probably not the way you planned. What's the situation on Earth? Morrison brought her up to speed on the invasion, the harvest operations, and humanity's desperate attempts at resistance. Kim listened without interruption, her expression growing more intense as he described the scope of the alien collection operations. Global harvest, she said finally. They're accelerating the timeline. We've been expecting this for years. Expecting it. The older humans, the ones who've been here longest, they've been tracking alien communication patterns. Every few decades, the harvest operations expand. Small increases in collection quotas, new target demographics, more aggressive acquisition protocols. Kim gestured toward the quarries. This facility has tripled in size since I arrived. They've been building up to something. Morrison followed her deeper into the quarry, where humans worked under alien supervision to extract the crystalline material. Up close, he could see that the workers moved with unnatural coordination, their actions synchronized in ways that suggested external control. Nodal conditioning, Kim a planet. The aliens implant control devices that regulate behavior during work periods. The effect wears off during rest cycles, which is when we can actually communicate. Morrison watched a work gang of humans operating mining equipment with perfect efficiency. Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. They weren't workers. They were extensions of alien machinery. How do you resist that? Very carefully. The conditioning implants monitor stress levels, emotional responses, deviation from work protocols. But they don't monitor everything. And they have limitations. Kim led him to a section of the quarry where the walls had been carved with what looked like random scratches. Up close, Morrison realized they weren't random at all. They were communication networks, messages carved in dozens of languages. Information sharing, Kim explained. Work assignments, facility layouts, guard rotations. The aliens monitor electronic communication, but they don't pay attention to primitive marking systems. They underestimate our ability to coordinate without technology. Morrison studied the markings, beginning to make sense of the patterns. Names, dates, facility maps. And something else, technical specifications that looked like they might be alien equipment schematics. You've been gathering intelligence. For 36 years, every human who arrives here adds to the database. Every work assignment provides new information about alien operations. We know more about their technology than they think we do. Kim pointed to a series of complex diagrams carved into the stone. Facility power systems, transportation networks, communication relays. Even some fleet positioning data from workers who've been transferred between worlds. Morrison felt a spark of hope for the first time since arriving on the alien world. You're planning something. We've been planning for decades. The problem has always been coordination. How do you organize a resistance movement across 17 different worlds when your primary communication system is scratches on cave walls? Kim led him to another section of the quarry where the markings were more recent. Morrison could see references to Earth, to current events, to recent arrivals. But now that's changed. The accelerated harvest operations mean they're bringing people from Earth in massive numbers. People with current intelligence, modern training, recent tactical experience. Morrison began to understand. You're waiting for the right people. We're waiting for people who know how to fight a war. Most of us were civilian abductees, doctors, teachers, accountants. People who survived the conditioning process through intelligence and adaptability, but not combat training. Kim stopped beside a marking that showed a crude map of the facility's central command structure. The aliens' greatest advantage is their technology, but their greatest weakness is their predictability. They've been operating these facilities the same way for centuries. Same work schedules, same security protocols, same transportation routes. Morrison studied the map, his tactical mind automatically analyzing choke points and vulnerable areas. What's the objective? Communication relay, Kim said simply. Every facility has a quantum communication system that maintains contact with the alien fleet. If we can capture even one relay, we can transmit intelligence back to Earth. And if we're caught, Kim's smile was cold as the alien sky above them. Then we die. But we die having cost them something. Every facility they lose disrupts their operations, forces them to divert resources from collection to security. Morrison understood. It wasn't about winning. It was about making the enemy pay for every victory. Death by 1,000 cuts, administered by people who had nothing left to lose. How many others? Active resistance cells on 11 of the 17 worlds. Maybe 3,000 people total who are willing to participate in direct action. Not many, but enough to cause serious disruption if we coordinate properly. Kim led him to a final section of markings, these ones clearly recent. Morrison could see references to Earth dates, to the current invasion, to tactical assessments. The beauty of the accelerated harvest is that it's bringing us exactly what we need. People with military training, current intelligence, modern tactical knowledge. People like you. Morrison studied the Carve Intelligence Network, beginning to grasp the scope of what the Resistance had accomplished. 36 years of patient intelligence gathering, careful coordination, and strategic planning, all leading to this moment. When do we move? Soon. The aliens are so confident in their control systems that they've never considered the possibility of coordinated resistance. They monitor individuals, not networks. They track compliance, not communication. Kim pointed toward the processing facilities in the distance. Tomorrow, you and your team will be assigned to work details throughout the facility. You'll have access to areas we've never been able to reach. And you'll have skills we've never had access to. Morrison felt his tactical mind already working on the problem. Alien technology was superior, but it was designed for control, not combat. Their facilities were efficient, but not fortified. They had overwhelming technological advantages, but they also had critical vulnerabilities. One more thing, Kim said as they prepared to return to the processing center. The children from your mission. They're in Dormitory 7, Adaptation Wing C. The conditioning process hasn't started yet. Morrison looked toward the dormitory buildings. Somewhere in those structures, 43 kids from Earth were learning that they would never see home again, unless someone did something about it. How many guards? Standard complement. Maybe 6 aliens, plus automated security systems. But Morrison, Kim grabbed his arm. The children are the priority. Whatever we do here, however, this ends, those kids go home. Morrison nodded. He had spent his entire adult life in military operations where success was measured in tactical objectives achieved and strategic positions secured. This was different. Success here would be measured in how many human beings made it home. How many children escaped the horror of alien slavery. How much pain humanity could inflict on its captors before the end came. It wasn't about winning. It was about making the aliens understand the cost of taking human children. It was about making them regret their decision to harvest humanity. And somewhere in the carved intelligence networks of 17 different alien worlds, human beings who had been given up for dead were preparing to send that message home. The aliens thought they understood human psychology. They thought they had broken human resistance through centuries of carefully managed harvesting operations. They were about to learn that humans were most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. The revolution was about to begin, not on Earth, but on the alien world where humanity's stolen children had been taken. And it would be led not by professional soldiers, but by parents who had been separated from their kids for decades. People who had spent years planning for exactly this moment. People who were about to show the aliens what human rage really looked like when it had time to plan.